Hey there guys, I'm Danks564 and this is the video in which I will try to briefly summarize the lore of the Fading Suns universe, which you might be familiar with from the Emperor of the Fading Suns video game and Fading Suns tabletop RPG. Fading Suns and Noble Armada are trademarks and copyrights of Holistic Design Inc. and all rights are reserved. Before we actually go into the history of humanity, I should quickly mention the creatures that made interstellar travel possible in the universe. They're called Anunnaki, Pre-Adamites, or Ur. They were two extremely advanced races and they were at war. At around 100 AD they disappeared and only thing they left behind was their technology. Most notably the jump gates that allowed instantaneous interstellar travel. As for humanity, it started space colonization in the 22nd century, after creation of one world government. This period is known as the First Republic. After a long period of wars, mega corporations realized that long avert wars were hurting their bottom line, and they supported creation of one world government initiated by the UN. But in a couple of decades, these Zybots ruled the Republic, and due to lack of resources on Earth, colonization of the solar system began. Then, after the turn of the 24th century, the jump gate was discovered at the edge of the solar system. It was the first sign of alien life and technology yet encountered by humanity. Controversial ruins were discovered on Mars, but were quickly covered up, so general public never knew about them. And when the gate was activated, colonization ship was sent through it. As they passed through the gate, the crew of the ship experienced sense of ecstasy. The feeling that they remembered some sort of knowledge that had been long forgotten. But after they emerged on the other side, they could remember only one word: Sathra. It became their religion, which annoyed the Republic to no end, so it was banned. Mainly because crews were doing many unnecessary jumps to experience the ecstasy again, putting the ships and cargo at risk. This actually developed psychic abilities in humans. Well, eventually. And after invention of the force field buffer that prevented the visions, Sathorism died out. New jump gates were discovered, and with so many people settling so far and so fast, it became harder and harder for the Republic to control the new worlds. The fall of the First Republic has begun. This period would be later known as Diaspora. On the frontier worlds, royal lineages began to appear, and became stronger and stronger. These noble houses led the downfall of Zaibatsu, as they started small wars grabbing more resources and power, and eventually whittling down the Republic. This was the period of chaos and barbarism, during which, on the frontier world, Prophet Zebulon began his sermons, and eventually created most powerful and influential religion. Main tenets of this new religion were that God gave humanity the holy flame, but there were demons that lurk in the darkness between the stars, seeking to snuff the holy flame, and that the suns grew cold as the demons and the sins they awaken in humanity block the light of holy flame from the universe. That is, of course, extremely simplified, but hey, that's a brief lore of the Fading Suns. Humanity also met the first sentient race during the period of the diaspora, a primitive horse-like creatures called Shantor on the planet of Shaprut. Humans were extracting resources from their planet, and Shantor rebelled. They were crushed and sent to scattered reservations. Fate of most sentient races encountered by humanity followed that of the Shantor, up until humanity met the most technologically advanced race in the universe, the Vow. On the planet human colonists called New Monaco, they found peaceful insectoid race called Gnesh. Colonists tried to do the same thing to them as they did to the Shantor. But unfortunately for them, huge spaceship appeared from the jump gate. It destroyed the fleet on the orbit and all the colonists on the planet. These were the Vow, and Ganesh were part of Vow hegemony. Humanity followed Vow, seeking retribution, but their fleet was destroyed. Thankfully, Vow were non-expansionist, and eventually peace was achieved. This conflict bolstered the power of the Church, as the Church drew humanity together. About 5 years after an encounter with the Vow, Criticorum was attacked by yet unknown alien race called Urukar. Massive war broke out in the system, as the noble houses fought the aliens. Then, Ukari on Shaprut used their psionic powers to force Shantor to revolt. When it was discovered that Ukari's psionics had been responsible, Patriarch Palamedes raised the fist of the newly formed Universal Church. Palamedes used the fear of the Ukari to gather more and more followers. He gathered the leaders of the worlds harmed by the Ukari and sent them to take retribution. Patriarch sent the fleet to the Okari homeworld of Kordeth, whose location had been previously unknown. Spiraling out of the jump gate, the fleet split up and began hitting any ship they came across. Humans landed on the capital planet and captured it, squashing the Okari resistance. Fear of alien races drove humanity to develop new technologies, and eventually worlds came together again. A new mercantile alliance was formed with the great democratic ideals, temporarily silencing the nobles by the strength of numbers. And in the 36th century, the Second Republic was born. Humanity reached its pinnacle in the form of Second Republic. The standard of living for average citizen was raised on all worlds. Technology knew no limits. With vast resources of other worlds and unity of purpose, nothing was impossible. But just as the First Republic, the Second Republic had grown too far and too fast. New technologies displaced workers, and soon there was no need for work. But economy did not keep up with the changes, and people still needed money to live. The welfare system of the Republic was grand, but not built to uphold the sheer number of the citizens displaced from their livelihood. And when unknown terrorists managed to sabotage central computer net controlling welfare information, anarchy ensued on many worlds as citizens were denied their money. Riots began. Some worlds began to seed, and to make things worse, stars began to fade, and the Church directed the discontent of the people at the Republic. The conflict reached its peak when the rogue world seized control of the government. In response, 10 major noble houses united their forces and sent a fleet to retake Byzantium. With their now vast military might, they retook the capital with little resistance. After 500 years, the Second Republic has fallen. The Church forbade the development and use of technology, since they believed it caused the downfall of humanity. The nobles were exempt of this rule and they supported it, since it would help them maintain control over population. 10 noble houses, the Church, and the Merchant League, which was formed by remaining Republic senators and corporate heads, formed the triumvirate government of the new Dark Ages. After the fall of the Republic, many worlds sealed their gates and hoped to protect themselves from the chaos. But no one can control when the gates will be opened again. The seal may last a week, or it may last for centuries. Cut off from the center of the Republic, many of these worlds lost their technology, devolving into diaspora-level conditions or worse. A few leaders of such worlds, who still had starships, were able to form a coalition and raid the known worlds. The barbarians invaded and years of fighting had begun, with worlds going back and forth between barbarians and noble houses. Eventually, one person, Vladimir of House Electo, recently elected leader of the 10, was finally able to unite the humanity against the common threat. After years of fighting, the barbarian invaders were broken and forced back to their own world. But Vladimir has claimed the worlds of those major noble houses who had not fully supported him for himself. Civil war erupted. Vladimir was able to defeat the houses that turned against him and declared himself an emperor. He introduced the Great Charter, instituting the office of electors, those who could vote on his succession. And as he placed the crown upon his head, fire erupted from his eyes, and he fell dead on the floor. Vladimir had no blood successor, and soon after House Electo became extinct, as well as some other great houses. The 10 now became the 5, composed of Hawkwood, Dekados, the Hazard, Lihalan, and Al-Malik. The electors could not come to accord on who would become the next emperor. Instead of an emperor, they elected a temporary regent to rule for next 10 years, until the emperor was chosen. It would be centuries until a new emperor would again ascend the throne. And during this uncertain time, symbiotes attacked. Symbiotes first appeared during the Second Republic on the planet of Chernobog, when the parasitic organism, the Xolotl, infected a group of eco-terrorists with psi theurgic powers. They overwhelmed the planet, and in response, Republic closed the jump gate in an attempt to hide the incident. The cover-up was probably too successful, since the known worlds entered the Dark Ages blissfully unaware of the terrible threat waiting beyond their borders. The symbiotes returned in the 50th century, attacking the border planets. They were stopped at the planet of Stigmata with the use of psi and theurgic powers, which before that were forbidden by the Church. Centuries after it had begun, the symbiote wars were brought to an uneasy standstill. 50 years after the symbiote wars had calmed, House Hawkwood made its bid for power. This is, by the way, when the game Emperor of the Fading Suns begins. Darius Hawkwood made overt offers to the League and the Church electors for increased power in return for their votes. This set off a flurry of counter-offers from other houses, each fighting to gain scepters. Decades of political, military, and social struggle began. Soon, a popular figure arose to appease all the quarreling forces, a master diplomat and a military tactician. Alexis Hawkwood, with the backing of Patriarch and the League Master, claimed the throne. Nikados and the Hazat opposed him, but soon capitulated. The Emperor Wars were at an end, and after 2 generations of the conflict, peace came to the known worlds. Thank you guys for watching. It was a great experience making this video, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Goodbye.